Hello everyone and welcome to yet another video podcast here on the Warbonds channel. If you don't know me, my name is Eric. I'm a locomotive engineer by profession, an avid model railroader, and just a lifelong rail enthusiast. Today is video podcast number 5 of a series that I have created called Building a 1-inch Scale Santa Fe GP60M. Now, in the previous 4 videos, I've giving you an introduction of the locomotive as it was delivered to me and what I'm doing to finish it. And we've gone through a few steps and different things that I've been doing to it to complete the build. However, one of the things that kind of dawned on me is that I've been giving you information about various things here and there, or telling you that I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that to the locomotive, but where am I getting my information from? Number one. Number two, in the very first video, I gave you a walk around of the locomotive and explained, once again, what I was going to do to it. However, I realized that you guys never really saw what it looked like, even when it, literally came out in its kit form. So today's video is going to cover all of those things because essentially I just kind of assumed that you guys understood certain things, and in reality, I have all these ideas and everything going through my head, but I haven't really presented that to you properly. So that's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. What the locomotive looked like as it was, as the parts were literally being created, and I want to talk about my main source of information for different components and different things that I've got to build on this locomotive. So I'm probably recapping a little bit of information here. So if I am, please bear with me, but sometimes reminders are good, especially in a video series that's going to be as long as this one will ultimately become, as we tap on each facet of the build and the different things that we need to do to get to the end goal. But going back to the very beginning, my friend Will was the one that I was introduced to at the time, and told him what I wanted to do with this GP60M, because it was just a pipe dream when we sat and talked. And I showed him some drawings that I had from an old Railroad Model Craftsman magazine. And he said, yeah, okay, I can work with this. So he went and made CAD drawings out of what I had given him in order to get everything that he needed to start the actual production of the parts. So that's one of the things that I wanted to show, is some of the in-progress pictures that he was actually sending me as the parts were actually becoming a reality. And one of my really good friends, an esteemed colleague of mine from work, actually reached out to me yesterday, and he talked about how he can see the joy on my face when I'm talking about certain things and certain milestones that this locomotive has taken. And of course, the pictures that I'm about to show you, that was no exception. When I would get a text message and I'd see these pictures, like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is real. It's a reality. This pipe dream of mine that I've had for years is actually coming to fruition. So those are the things that I hadn't shared with you previously, and why not? So that's what this video podcast is going to be about today. Now, as we get started on this video montage here, these are the actual drawings that I presented to Will on our first meeting when I said this is what I want to build. Okay, so basically what he did is took these drawings to get an idea of what he needed to create. Now, the next photo we see here are the flat parts of the cab. And what we're looking at here is the result of the fact that he took the drawings that I gave him, created a new set of drawings in his computer-aided design drawings, fed those into what's called a CNC machine, or computer numerical control machine, which is much like the Cricut machine that I showed you the demonstration of in video number 3. Now, by using that CNC machine, he was able to cut out these steel parts of this locomotive. So we see these are the flat parts of the cab. He was also able to use that machine to make the various details in there as well, such as the grills, making the holes for battery box latches, and so forth. In this picture here, we see where the parts were now starting to come together here. And in this picture here, we see that the cab has now been totally welded. This was an exciting moment the very first time I saw this, because reality had come about. Now in this picture, we also see the sides of the long hood, and he laid everything out, and that CNC machine was able to engrave all the access doors and all the details that we needed on the locomotive. Now, we see in this view here, everything is laid out, and it's just a matter of separating everything apart. Now in this picture here, we see the parts that have been separated and the welding process has begun. And of course, another angle, you can see all the fine, intricate details. And in something this big, engraving any kind of details is the best way to go. Now in this picture here, this is when I had actually bought the decking, and what we ended up doing is went to an outside source in order to have those done. But this picture here shows when we had the cab actually sitting on the deck. Once again, one of those milestone moments where we knew that we're really getting somewhere with this project and everything is starting to come together. This was also shortly after I bought the trucks as well. So we were just fitting everything together, and reality was really starting to set in that this project was really going somewhere. Now in this view here, we also see the long hood is together on the locomotive as well. So this was the first time that all of the parts had actually come together like this. So it was definitely an exciting and monumental moment. And the last shot here shows the caps for the air tanks or air reservoirs that fit just above the fuel tank. So these are the caps that we're going to be using for that. So I mentioned needing resources for everything that I'm doing on this locomotive, to be able to reference things that I'm doing to make sure that I'm hopefully going in the right direction and doing this right. So there's a website that I actually found years and years ago called qstation.org. Now, QStation is, I believe, a website that was created by the Santa Fe Modeling and Historical Society. There is just an invaluable amount of information on there if you're looking for anything Santa Fe. For any of you diehard Santa Fe fans like myself, about anything you want is either on there, or it'll direct you to some place where you can find that information. So one of the things that I happen to find, because I'm building a GP60M, because I mean, they're just, my favorite engines, my favorite locomotives ever built. And so I happen to find a page or a section on this web page that is called GP60M ATSF number 135, a diesel in-depth photo album by Eric Goodman. So Eric, he and I have never met. I've known who he is for years. We have many of the same friends, but I've seen his work for many years. He's an HO scale modeler, and just seeing some of the phenomenal things that he's done. Some of the things have really inspired me to, try to finish up some of the stuff that I even have in smaller scales. I mean, I've got some G scale locomotives that I had been scratch building and that need to be finished, and just looking at how effortlessly it seems that he can get something done just really inspires me. So he's been an inspiration, to me, for many years. And then to see this section of this webpage that he's done, it's just been invaluable to me. So I wanted to actually go in for a few minutes and I want to show you why it's invaluable. And of course, we've got the website up, on the screen, so you can go there and look for yourself. But I think that if you're that interested in what I'm doing here, because I know I can get kind of technical, but this would give you an idea of how to go in and look at what's going on, look at what he's put out there, look at all the galleries of photos that he's got out there for you to see, oh, okay, this is how Eric has done this, or Eric as in myself, but, this is, how I've done this, when it comes to, the details on the trucks, or, this detail on the side of the locomotive. Later on, when the body work and everything is completed, the model's together, and we start the painting process, this is where he came up with this detail here. That's why he's painting this, this way. Just so different things. This is just an invaluable source, and I think it will answer a lot of questions as to what I'm doing, because basically you're going right to the same source that I'm using as I'm building this model. Okay, so we have the website open here, and like I say, this is just great here. So let's just kind of navigate this here. So basically what we're looking at here is just, a welcome of what's going to be presented. And then we have the history of the GP60M. Now in video number 1, I gave you some history, but I gave you a real short synopsis of what was going on. But Eric actually goes in further detail as far as how the GP60Ms came to be, and exactly what happened, and just all the little intricate details. So this is something that you can certainly go and read. It's certainly a very interesting read, and I was even reminded of some of the things that I knew before, and learned a few more things that I didn't know as well. So this is definitely a wealth of information if you want a little history on the locomotives. Now, if we go into the meat and potatoes here, so here's gallery page number 1. So we're going to click on that, and voila. So we've got just an absolute myriad of things that are just invaluable. Now, for the untrained eye per se, and this is not meant in a bad way or anything like that, but obviously there's a lot of things that I'm looking at, and I know what I'm looking at, that maybe somebody else, may not look at, think, well, that's just a cut off picture of something. But no, there's things like, for instance here, let's go to right rear fuel tank, okay? So that picture says a lot to me. Now, for somebody else, they may say, okay, well, what is it? Well, this says a lot to me, and this is what I'm going to explain. So, for instance, here's a part of the truck, and this is the rear of the locomotive. So the rear engineer side of the locomotive. So some of the things that I'm looking at the close-up of some of the details here, of like the journals and the bearings. I'm looking at that there. Here's the pedestal liner here. You'll later see when I get into talking about trucks that I basically did a lot of work where I just took the grinder and sander, and I just sanded off a lot of the cast-on details, and I'm actually fabricating new parts and putting things on there. So this is some stuff that, keep in mind, you'll see later as to what I'm doing on my model. And now we look at the fuel tank here. So with something as big as what I'm doing, I'm going to be looking at, okay, yeah, there's some detail right there. Okay, look at all that piping. Now, I mean, we're going to go big or go home. So there's a lot of this detail that you'll see on my locomotive. Now, I'm not saying that every single, millimeter of an ounce of detail is going to be on there, but there's going to be a lot of things. But the other thing that I have to realize too is that when I'm doing things, I have to look at things from the standpoint of, okay, this model is going to be on the railroad. Now, just like those that spend hours and hours and hours and hundreds of hours on building model airplanes, and they put in thousands and thousands of dollars, well, those planes sometimes come down, unfortunately. So even with my model, there's a possibility that things can roll over. It's not 100% guaranteed that when I go to the club, it's going to come back. So therefore, I have to look at, okay, some of the things that I put on there, is it going to be well protected? If it does roll, is that going to rip off? Well, you never know, but those are the chances you take. But then if things happen, things can be fixed. So, but for the sake of where we were going here, yes, there's details that I want to add here. So now we're going to go back here and, so let's look here. So the right rear steps. So this is something else, that I'm looking at, because I can see here, okay, for instance, this is the cut lever here, or what we call cut lever or uncoupling lever. And this is, how you separate pieces of equipment, how you unlock the knuckle, so that when you're separating equipment, the knuckle opens up and the equipment is separated. Well, I am actually looking at, doing some of this. And so just looking at this angle here, gives me enough information of what I need to say, okay, how long is this? And sometimes what's great about the computer that I have here is that I'm an Apple user. Of course, I'm not here to sell Apple or talk good about them, talk bad about them, or Android this or anything. Just talking about what I'm using and the advantages of what I can get. But sometimes I can take this picture and put it on my iPad and kind of blow it up just enough to where it's right at about the exact size that I need. Then that way I can take like a ruler or something like that, and I can measure this here. Like, okay, how long does this need to be? Okay, so then it gives me a really good approximation of how long I need this to be right here when I start bending wires. So this is one of those things that I can be an armchair modeler about and sit and bend, while I'm sitting down watching TV or something like that. But there's a lot of work. It is intricate. So it's one of the things that I haven't actually done yet. But also, in video number 4, you saw how Justin welded the C frame to the deck and everything. So here's the reality of what we've got right here. Here's the step wells here. So there's different things that I've got to look at. How am I going to fabricate this? How long should this be? There's just so many questions that these pictures answered for me. So we'll go back here. Of course now, so here's a really good shot of the engineer's side, the right side of the cab. And okay, so here's a sunshade here. Now I've already fabricated a couple sunshades for it, but we also have the windows here. Okay, how am I going to do the windows? Let's see. There's the rear view mirror there. There's the armrest. So those are little things that I'll be looking at when I get closer, to try to make those details happen. Let's see here. Okay, so let me go here. This is a picture that I've been looking at quite a bit lately, just because I'm working on doing the dynamic brake section, which is, okay, I guess I'm letting the cat out of the bag here, but this is one of the things I am working on, is the dynamics, because there are some things that I have to redo and rebuild, redesign. So that's something that's going to be coming your way. But there's a lot of work. It's very very intricate, and and time consuming. So, but I've been looking at things here. Okay, how far does this dynamic brake box come? How close does it come to the inertial air intake right there? So I'm looking at things like that. Well, man, these photos are great because they show me an absolute close-up of these things that I need to know. Okay, so now we've looked at a number of things here. Let's go to gallery number 2. All right, so let's see here. Well, let's go to the left front steps photo there. Okay, so same as what we saw before. Now, but what else does this photo show me? Okay, well, all right, there's the cut levers again. But hey, we're at the front of the locomotive. So, oh, okay, hey, look, we got the ditch lights there. So that gives me a great angle to see the ditch lights there. Now, one of the other things that's been very, very difficult to come about completing is the snow plow. And so my friend down in Texas that I'll be getting with in November, this is something that we've talked about as well. So we've got some really good, a really good shot here, kind of showing some of the things that we need to do. There's even a little bit of detail underneath the anti-climber here. And so in case you don't know, I know that I referenced this part of the locomotive before, but this is the anti-climber. And so basically, the main objective of this piece is that in case you get into a wreck, you hit something, hit a car, you hit a truck, or heaven forbid, you run into another train, that anti-climber is there to try to keep things from jumping up and over to basically shear off the cab, which unfortunately has happened in a lot of instances over the last several decades, and really since before the railroading became a popular thing. And unfortunately, like railroading, aviation, all sorts of things, you learn lessons through wrecks, and unfortunately people die. But if those wrecks end up bringing out new safety ideas, well, then it makes things better. So I definitely feel a lot safer. And this GP60M, this is one of the things that happened. They came out with these safety cabs. So being on a locomotive, if I hit something, and I've got a cab like that, it does make me feel safer. But anyway, getting back to where we were here. Once again, you've got another view of the front left truck, or the front left side frame. So as we look at this part here, this is the what we call the speed recorder. So this is basically what's fed up into the cab to let you know how fast you're going. So we got the details on that there. Oh, okay. Well, this is great there. There's just so many details there. So there's going to be things that you're going to see on my locomotive that are going to be direct references to some of these photos here. And so now if we go back here, of course I was talking about the dynamic brakes. So here's another beautiful shot here of what's going on. Gives me an idea of the things that I need to look at, and like, okay, I see how all this is, how all this plays out. Here's a great shot of the fuel tank. Now, even when it comes to painting this, now a lot of people in this scale and these larger scales, they don't weather anything, and I mean, I can understand, because most of the things that I'm doing are not things that are typically done by a lot of the people that are in this scale. So, but in my case, I mean, people can say, well, you're going to be putting all this time and effort, into a paint job, and you're going to weather it. Well, you know what? I'm modeling reality, and I am basically an HO scale modeler who is just playing in a much bigger scale. So yes, I'll probably do some weathering, and I'm not going to make it filthy, but certainly put a few subtle hints on it. So I guess it's kind of like little girls are taught when they're learning to put on makeup that no, you don't cake it on like war paint, but a little goes a long way. Well, same with weathering. a little bit goes a long way. But so there's, let's see, I can kind of zoom that in. Okay, so, there's your air dryer there. So, and your air tank here. So I've already got a few pieces of this. My air tank is actually going to be a piece of PVC pipe. My friend in Texas has also given me some caps to actually put on there. And if you saw in the just earlier in the video here, some of the in progress things I showed a picture of the caps, and that's what's going to go on there. So he was actually able to 3D print those caps, and they were just absolutely gorgeous. So they'll be glued on to a piece of PVC pipe that I'll cut down, and that's what's going to be, the air tank. So yes, in that case, there's really going to be a lot of materials being used in this. There's going to be steel, of course. There's going to be PVC. There's going to be 3D printing. There's going to be brass. There's going to be aluminum. There's all sorts of things. But as long as everything holds up, in extreme weather conditions, that's all that matters. Okay, so we're also going to go to the left rear here. So now as I'm sitting here looking, okay, so this is an electrical cabinet that's right behind the cab here. So I'm even looking at that, kind of getting an idea of how I need to, build that. And here's the traction motor blower housing, which is one of the things that, I'm going to be adding on later. So, as you can see, there's just, I could go on and on and on. And honestly, I do go on and on and on because if I'm sitting around not doing anything, looking at my phone, looking at my iPad, looking at some of these pictures that I've downloaded so that I can sit there and look at them a little closer and figure things out. Here's another picture here. This is a full picture of the Blomberg M Truck. So I've shown some pictures of what the Blomberg B trucks that I'm working with looked like originally. And I've ground off so much detail, but to where it's just basically a skeleton of what it was before. But these are some of the main things here that I'm working with right now. So, of course, once again, we have the speed recorder cable. Now, on a Blomberg M truck, you only have one brake cylinder, and then on the other side, instead of having another brake cylinder, you actually have a shock absorber there. So this is some of the stuff that I'll be working on when it comes to doing my trucks. Even if we go up here, you can see the the air intake grills here, just at the bottom part of the cab. So you can reference that, as well to, the ones that are on my locomotive. Now, we just engraved them in, so they're not, even though it's big and everything, but as big as it is, we didn't make them see-through. But, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, is this something I should do? No, probably not. But now you get an idea of some of the things that I start thinking about, like, as I'm looking at that photo, how could I make that? How could I improve this part of the model? How could I do this? How could I do that? But then the other thing that a person's got to say is it worth doing that? Is that going to be way too much work? So, no, it's not. And one of the things that I'm sure no matter what scale you're in, especially if you're an HO scale or something like that, and you think, oh, well, I want to use this piece or I want to use that detail part. Well, yes, at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself. And as you do things, you point something out to somebody that, hey, look at what I've done here. Oh, wow, that's absolutely magnificent. But sometimes, are people really going to notice some of those things? And it's kind of like I say, my little kids who you buy them something nice, you buy them a scooter or something like that. And they're more interested in the box than they are the actual merchandise. So sometimes that's the thing when people are looking at your work. Well, they're more interested in just something that, oh, well, maybe we as the modeler think it's no big deal, but that is more exciting to them than some real intricate and hard thing that you did on this locomotive. I'm like, well, that's the part that's supposed to be appreciated, but no, they don't notice that stuff. They notice something else. So, or hey, you put a little guy in the cab or something. They notice stuff like that. But nonetheless, no matter what, it's still fun because even if I do something that's something that somebody isn't really focused on, I still challenge myself in everything that I build. So that's one of the reasons that I go to the high extremes that I do. We're going to go to gallery number 3 here, and there's only a few shots in here, but there's another cab shot there. Of course, now we can see the front of the locomotive, the windshields, okay, windshield wipers, grab irons, and so different things like that. Now, of course, as we're looking here, we see the door latches, for the battery boxes, and so yeah, there's just so much to look at. And I guess while I'm at it here, as you can see here, the yellow for the cigar band herald that's wrapping around from the front of the nose to the side here. So you can see that, oh, okay, what we talked about in video number 3 about how I'm going to have to paint certain details on because some things just aren't going to lay over some of this detail that we're doing. So this is one of those things that's also going to have to be painted on because, yes, there's just, this isn't as bad as the side of the locomotive, but it's still going to be easier to do that because, well, let's see. Let's go back and find a front view of the locomotive. And, okay, there we go right there. So you can see, like we've got grab irons here and just all sorts of stuff there, details that are just gonna, these details are gonna get in the way of trying to lay a piece of vinyl down. Now, granted, whether you're an HO scale or you're doing 1/8 scale, yeah, you lay the cigar band down here and then you put your grab irons in. But there's still other details in there as well. Let's see. Let's zoom in here a little bit there. Okay, so even depending on whether I put the nut and bolt castings on here or not, there's still little things there that it's just the way things are going to lay down. It's just so much easier just to paint things on. But certainly, like I said, the side of the locomotive there where we've got the battery box door latches there, yeah, we're going to want to paint things on. So anyway, like I said, I could go on and on and on and on, and honestly I do, and maybe it sounds a little boring to some people, but I can do hours and hours of research, and sometimes it's just staring at a picture until something actually pops out, and it's fun for me. But so as a kid, and it still happens these days, like somebody like me was called a nerd because I was still one of those people that took magazines to school, and when I was building an HO scale model, I would look to see details, and I could just sit there, during free period in a classroom. Oh, well, heck, who am I kidding here? If somebody was lecturing something in high school, when I was in high school and it was boring, all right, open up your textbook and yeah, I got the model magazine in there, or I'm looking at train pictures. But I become, I like to say, halfway successful in my life. So apparently I wasn't I didn't do too bad, and I got through school. So even though I was sitting there looking at train magazines, but nonetheless, this is once again Eric Goodman's Diesel in-depth photo album, and really appreciative to you, Eric, and I know you'll be watching this, and I appreciate everything you've done to make my job a lot easier, and certainly as more people look at this information, I hope that others will be able to gather a great deal of information and knowledge for their products as well. All right, so there you have it. Once again, this was one of those videos where I'm doing more talking than I am, actually working on the actual model. But as I said, there were things that I wanted you guys to know, and first and foremost, a few of the photos of what this model actually looked like, from the very beginning, and how all the individual pieces looked before it started getting welded together. Then using this time to talk about Eric Goodman's page here, and just showing you the examples of how I use it, the things that I look for. And so it's not that, I can look at a picture one time like, oh, okay, that's what we're going to do. No, it's looking at it and it's staring at it for a while. And we as human beings, we don't pick up everything right away. And it's like, how many times have you watched a movie and, oh, well, you've watched that movie 10 times, and it's on that 10th time that you notice something that you didn't know in the previous 9 times of watching it. So, hence, that's what, doing this model stuff is all about, because you want to take in every single detail. And like I showed you, like where the brake cylinders are, on the Blomberg M trucks. And when I went and started cutting brake cylinders off of my side frames, sometimes you do something and like, oh, okay, yep, I got it. And well, no, you don't really got it. And all of a sudden you find that, oh, okay, you start cutting something off and then you find, oh no, I cut the wrong thing off, or I didn't look at the picture well enough. And well, I knew it only had one brake cylinder, but oh, I wasn't thinking and I cut the wrong one off. Or so then you're, in some problems. And I mean, even though a lot of those things can be fixed, but you still add more work time to the locomotive. But then sometimes it's not so bad either, because you learn a lesson. But you make that mistake one time, like, okay, I know what happened the last time. I'm not going to do that again. So thankfully, some of the mistakes that I've made, even on this one, have been fairly minor mistakes. But anyway, I hope that this has been despite the fact I was talking, I hope this has been informative. I hope it's been interesting. I've really enjoyed making these videos so far, and I hope you'll continue to stick with me. And, as I also said too, being a locomotive engineer, as I have been for almost 30 years, I know a lot of people have questions about things. So, if you've even got questions about things like that, feel free to hit me up in the comments, and I'd love to be able to answer questions. And just my channel is all about educating people on things that they want to know. So please, ask any kind of questions away. If you have other questions about the build or suggestions, as some of you have made to me, I gladly take all of that stuff. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time to watch. And once again, I hope you'll stay with us.